You know that feeling when you're totally, completely, objectively right about something, you've laid out your flawless logic for everyone to see, and somehow you still lose the argument? Man, it is literally one of the most frustrating experiences in the human playbook. You've got the facts, you've got the data, the truth is entirely on your side, and yet the other person just digs their heels in even deeper. Well, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to unpack exactly why this happens, and far more importantly, how to actually fix it by looking at the architecture of influence.
Okay, let's dive into this. When we have the truth on our side, our immediate gut instinct is to open our mouths, right? We kind of assume that if we just find the absolute perfect words, or if we build this ultimate, undeniable logical sequence, the other person is going to have a massive light bulb moment and just concede. But leaning solely on words and logic, it's actually a massive psychological trap. Being right, surprisingly enough, usually backfires on us because we fundamentally misunderstand human nature.
See, we mistakenly think people process information like logic-driven calculators. Like, you just input the correct data, and beep boop, out comes a newly changed mind. But the reality? We actually change a lot more like stubborn animals. Our emotions, our pride, and our egos are so deeply tangled up with our opinions. The exact moment you try to win an argument with words, you aren't actually fighting their logic anymore. You are battling their pride. And I promise you, when you corner someone's pride, it's going to cost you their respect, their patience, and ultimately, any influence you had over them.
Section 1, the danger of being right. To vividly illustrate just how fatal this logic trap can actually be, we need to travel back to ancient Greece.
Set the scene in your mind. We are right in the middle of a high-stakes, desperate military siege. A Roman commander urgently needs to break through a city's walls, so he sends a message to his engineer in Athens with a very simple, extremely specific instruction. Send the large mass so he can build a battering ram. There's no ambiguity here at all. It's a military order. Debate was absolutely not requested, and time is running out.
But the Greek engineer reads the order and thinks to himself, no, that's wrong. The small mast is actually better. I'm the expert here. Now let's just pause and pivot for a second. Bring yourself right to the edge of the cliff with this guy. The soldiers delivering the message are literally telling him to just send what the commander ordered. But his expertise completely gets the better of him. He's objectively, scientifically correct about the engineering, but he's about to let his absolute certainty doom him.
Look at the massive disconnect here. The commander wanted strict obedience and immediate results. The guy's fighting a literal war. But what did the engineer actually give him? Endless debate, theoretical diagrams, and a huge dose of perceived disrespect. The engineer treated a bleeding, urgent battlefield order like a calm courtroom case where he had all day to prove his intellectual superiority. He argues, he over-explains, and eventually, so convinced of his own brilliance, he just sends the smaller mast anyway.
And when that smaller mast arrives, the commander doesn't see science. He doesn't see superior engineering. He only sees blatant, infuriating disrespect. The commander is so furious that the engineer is summoned, and instead of being praised for his big brain, he's destroyed, executed. The brutal lesson hiding right there in the bloodline of this story is undeniable. Being correct is utterly useless if you insult someone's authority or pride while proving it. He won the debate in his head, but he lost his life in reality.
Section 2, controlling the experience. So how do we avoid a catastrophic failure like that Greek engineer? Well, we need a clever psychological workaround. Let's pivot over to Renaissance Florence to see what mastering this actually looks like.
Picture Michelangelo. He's sculpting his absolute masterpiece, the Statue of David, and this powerful, wealthy politician comes by to inspect the progress. The politician squints up at this legendary piece of art and casually says, "You know, the nose is too big." Now think about it. This is the exact moment an artist usually loses their mind. This is where they argue about lighting, perspective, and the sheer ignorance of the critic, right? And in doing so, they completely ruin the relationship with the person actually funding their work.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Michelangelo's highly replicable, totally ego-bypassing procedure. Step 1, he agrees. He says absolutely nothing defensive. Step 2, he gently leads the politician up the scaffolding so he's standing closer to the face, completely changing his vantage point. Step 3, he pretends to chisel away at the nose, secretly dropping some marble dust he already had in his hand to fake the work. The politician looks at it and goes, "Ah, yes, much better."
Michelangelo brilliantly utilized what we call a controlled experience. Notice the sheer genius here. Absolutely nothing about the actual statue changed. Not a single millimeter of marble was removed from that nose. Only the politician's perception changed. Michelangelo gave him a controlled experience that allowed the guy to feel heard, respected, and important. Result? A happy patron and 0 bruised egos. He completely won without arguing a single word.
Section 3,
reality over debate. And this brings us to a high-stakes survival story that demonstrates the absolute, undeniable triumph of action. Follow this timeline with me. A deeply loyal royal vizier is falsely accused of treason by his political enemies. The king, unfortunately, buys the lies and sentences him to death. But look at day one. The vizier doesn't beg, he doesn't scream and cry about his innocence. Instead, he asks for a bizarre final request. Just give me 10 days to care for your vicious hunting dogs. From days 2 to 9, he avoids speeches completely. He just feeds them, trains them, and treats them well. The suspense builds and builds until day 10, when the king throws him into the pit to be torn apart by those very same dogs.
I want you to imagine the absolute silence in that courtyard. The vizier is thrown into the pit. Every single person is holding their breath, expecting a gruesome, bloody execution. But the dogs don't attack. They run right up to him, their tails wagging. They recognize him. They trust him. It is a shocking, completely undeniable physical reality unfolding right in front of the king's eyes. Only then, standing down in that pit, among the calm dogs, does the vizier finally speak. And he delivers this absolute mic drop moment. He looks up and says, "I took care of your dogs for 10 days and they love me. I served you for 30 years and you still believe lies about me." Wow. The king is instantly struck with the truth. No clever argument, no impassioned, tearful plea could have ever changed his mind. But the physical result, the undeniable reality standing right in front of him, it shattered those false accusations instantly.
Section 4. Winning through action. The vizier survived because he understood a fundamental law of human behavior. Let's transition into the psychological breakdown of why this paradigm shift from words to action is absolutely mandatory if you want to navigate the stubborn people in your own life.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core concept we're unpacking today. Think of arguments in words like throwing stones into a river. You make a splash, sure. You create some noise, you generate these ripples of disturbance, but you don't actually change the direction of the water. Now contrast that with actions. Actions are like taking a massive, heavy boulder and placing it directly in someone's path. You aren't just making noise anymore, you are altering the terrain. You are forcing them to step over it or walk around it. You're forcing a physical response to reality.
Let's rapidly fire through the inherent weaknesses of verbal debate. Why do words fail us so often? Well, because words can just be ignored. Arguments can be maliciously twisted by someone clever enough. Opinions can be firmly resisted just out of pure spite. Words only disturb the water. They give the other person countless angles to evade, redirect, or fight back without ever actually having to address the core truth.
But reality cannot be debated for long. In action, that solid boulder in the path is physical evidence. It exists entirely independently of anyone's opinion. When you show someone a completed project, a functional prototype, or, a pack of hunting dogs that refuse to bite you, they are no longer arguing against your opinion. They are arguing against reality itself. And that is an argument nobody can sustain.
Because here is the massive reveal that unlocks this entire concept. Most arguments in life are literally just ego battles dressed up as logic. People are so rarely arguing to actually understand the truth. They're arguing so they don't have to feel the sting of being wrong. When you try to win with pure logic, you're basically bringing a spreadsheet to a knife fight. You are fighting reason, but your opponent is fighting for their pride. You're fighting the completely wrong enemy.
Which leads us to a highly practical warning for your daily life. Seriously, pay attention to this red flag. If you ever find yourself explaining a concept way too much, defending your position too hard, or repeating the exact same points over and over with rising frustration, stop. Just stop. You've already left the path of influence. The very moment your mouth is working harder than your results, you're losing the game. So here is the simple, core game plan from today's explainer to help you reclaim your influence. Step 1, do the thing. Honestly, just stop talking about it. Step 2, show the result. Step 3, let reality speak first. Once people see the proof with their own 2 eyes, there is simply nothing left for them to argue about. You bypass their ego entirely by letting the result do all the heavy lifting.
I really want to leave you with this final thought to apply to your own life today. Take a hard look at the arguments, the resistance, and the endless debates you're currently facing. If actions truly speak louder than words, what undeniable reality do you need to build today to silence the debate? Stop arguing. Start building that stone in the path. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.